Hey Exercise Confidence listeners, thank you so much for tuning in today. We're still sticking with those COVID-19 guidelines, so today's interview was conducted over FaceTime once again. But I've got some new audio recording equipment, and I'm really excited for you to hear the quality of what we produced today. In this episode, we're going to hear from Mark DeGrasse. I actually had the pleasure of working for Mark and his wife Jamie for quite some time, and I definitely learned a lot from them. They're both two powerhouse confident people, but Mark is the self-proclaimed shy, introverted one of the two. So for any of our shyer listeners out there, don't ever feel discouraged if you're not an extrovert. Confidence comes in all shapes and sizes. Mark has a lot of success in the business industry, and he shared some of that with us today. He's very real, and he apologizes a couple times for going off on some tangents, but I think that there is knowledge in everything that he says today that can be applied for you to learn how to exercise confidence. So let's hop into this interview and learn about all the different ways in which Mark has been able to exercise confidence. Honestly, thank you so much. I was super excited when I was like, oh, why don't I interview Mark? And you were like, yes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've actually been on quite a growing list of these, so I could always talk, which is funny because I'm very introverted, but this is okay.
Well, I feel like I'm the same way. There's a term, it's an introverted extrovert or extroverted introvert, because it's I can socialize and I can do the whole hey, what's up? But,
buddy up, yeah.
But I definitely need to go away and get my alone time. Yeah. Today we have with us somebody who has always been really inspiring to me. I actually had the privilege of working for him and his wife for a while and learning a lot from them. So I just want to thank you so much for being with us today, Mark.
Hey, glad to be here.
And Mark's coming to us from Austin, Texas?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, technically Dripping Springs. I'm in Austin, but we're on the very southwest corner. So it's a small town. It's 5,000 people. Well, they say 5,000. I think it's way more than that.
It sounds nice, though.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's called Belterra. It's this little community. It's 100% families, and then trails everywhere. And yeah, it's outside the city, so it's not so crazy. But even right now, it's not that bad.
Speaking of families, how are you and the kids and Jamie doing during all of this right now? How's it over there?
Good. It's been, they canceled. My son goes to Central Texas Autism Center, or did until they closed. So he's in full-time ABA therapy, which he has not been now. So it's been a little rough with that. And then Declan is off of school, and he's our little extrovert. So he's, chomping at the bit to talk to friends, and he loves people. So it's tough for him, but the rest of us are pretty okay.
With the work that you do, let's talk just a little bit more about that to give people some background.
Sure. So I do, I call it media creation, or content creation. A lot of people see it as websites, but websites are just one platform. We also do podcasts and YouTube channels and graphics and, basically anything associated with what you would post online. So my background was originally, I had a magazine that I sold to a company here in Austin. And then I wrote a book called Unconventional Marketing, and I've basically been trying to implement the book for other businesses for the last 6 years or so. So we built, I want to say 250 brands and websites in that time.
Were you always somebody that was kind of that confident person that saw themselves going into the business entrepreneurial side, or were you a little more reserved growing up?
No, I always wanted to be in business, probably since I was 7. I think I printed out, my own flyers for a lawn mowing service and then passed it around. I was only 7, and so I think I got 2 calls, and somebody was can you mow my lawn? And I was at a soccer game, so that didn't work. And my mom was wondering what the heck happened. But yeah, I was always into having a small business, being an entrepreneur since the time I was 6. I wasn't confident, though. I've always been introverted, so I was actually pretty shy, always. People always say, no, you seem whatever. I'm no. I was never comfortable in public. I was never comfortable around people. I wanted to be part of the crowd, but at the same time, I always wanted to have my own business and be independent and all that kind of stuff.
Do you think that between like business Mark and personal life Mark, it's almost like flipping an intentional switch so that you can get done what you need to, since you just said you're more of an introvert and not necessarily that like outgoing person?
Yeah, well, I think I realized like that was going to be a barrier. The fact that I didn't want to talk to people, I didn't like standing up in front of people, giving presentations, all that stuff. So I realized that was a barrier when I was like 17. So when I was 18, I actually got my real estate license, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to learn how to be a salesperson, and that's going to make all of this more comfortable. And it didn't. so I sold a few million in real estate between the time I was like 18 and 21. I actually became a broker, but it was completely uncomfortable the entire time. But I learned how to talk to people. You'd have to, do cold calling. You have to do all these terrible things. So I think I try to combat my weakness, or my perceived weakness of introversion, by doing the exact opposite. And it worked. I could talk now.
I would say that not a lot of people tend to see a barrier that they have to overcome and decide to just dive right into it. I think a lot of people tend to kind of see that and think, okay, well, it's time for a different path. Was there any specific reason why you just decided to think, like, if I'm going to do it, I've got to do it, instead of choosing something else?
I'm trying to think, because I've always been pretty self-aware. So it wasn't like I'm going to deny my weakness or just find a path where it's okay to have this. I think I just saw it as like a necessary trait to have. So as soon as I kind of decide, and I'm a slow learner, so it's not like I make this decision and then it happens tomorrow. It's like I'll think about things for like a year, and then I'll be like, okay, I'm going to fix this, and then I go full in at that point. So there's a lot of planning, I guess you could call it. But then when I decide to do something, it's basically like it's going to happen.
Being self-aware, is that something that you think maybe could have been an underlying positive that kind of helped you maybe have that unseen confidence in yourself to really go after the things like even that were outside of the comfort zone for you? Yeah. I think self-awareness. I think a lot of people are just delusional about what they are and aren't, and then they just. I mean, some people, you look at these confident people, and you've met a bunch of them in your life, and you're just like, when you talk to them, they're just so confident, and then as I think it's a more intelligent trait to be like, you want to take the information and say, okay, maybe I don't know this, and so you're going to give me this information. You're super confident about it, so I'm going to listen. But then with the other side, and they call it the Dunham-Kruger effect, the people who don't know anything think they know everything. So the flip side is that they're super confident, and then you look back and you're like, that person was so wrong, and that was so dumb I listened. And so that's the exact opposite of being self-aware, where you're super confident, totally ignorant, and it's not productive for you or for anybody you talk to. So I think the self-awareness. On the flip side of that, you do have lower self-esteem most of the time. So, and self-esteem isn't, I think, a barrier to success at all. You just feel bad. No, I for sure, like, I can attest to that, because fortunately so far, all the interviews I've done, I don't think I've had anybody that's delusional in terms of their self-confidence. Everybody, and that again is due to like how I filter out who I choose to interview, because I think you can kind of pick up on that when somebody's either faking it or you're kind of just like, something is a little off on your confidence, and maybe it's not all from your knowledge, maybe it's from just what you think you know about yourself. So I understand what you're saying with that, and I think it's unfortunate, because I feel like people are in that state of delusion. They almost don't even realize it, and it's almost a disservice to themselves.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a disservice. Well, how do you learn and grow if you're like already the best at whatever you think you're the best at? It's impossible. And so I did. But I mean, on the flip side of that, though, because I know these people and they're happy people, so then you're like, wow, they seem pretty satisfied, who's to say that's a bad thing?
I mean, how could you not be satisfied when you're constantly thinking that you're the best? So
yeah, well, I know people where it's just like even their memory puts them in a positive light. So even though if they had done terrible things in the past, how they remember them is like, oh no, I was right then too, and then they don't even feel bad about the stuff they did. So it's almost like, I don't know. It's I'm not going to say I envy these people, but I could see the benefits of being delusional and like, where's the downside? Like, you're never going to acknowledge that you're a piece of crap, so who cares?
yeah, like how are you going to grow? And growth is super important to anything. You don't want to be stagnant.
Yeah, you think that, but some people are totally fine being stagnant. So I don't know. It's tricky because I think it's a balance of like, okay, you're smart, you're motivated, you're self-aware, and then you're like, I am so unsatisfied because I know how much I still have to achieve or learn or all that kind of stuff. So it's tricky. I'm not telling you not to do those things. I'm just saying it's almost a personality type where you don't have a choice. So.
From your perspective as, the guy who's doing all of this creating, what would you say has been I'm going to rephrase that because this is why I don't do it live yet.
This is fine. It makes it more real.
Yeah. I try not
when
to.
When you screw up big time.
Yeah. I know at first, I think the first few episodes I was so into editing everything perfectly. And then now I've been more just kind of listening. But also it goes back to what you were saying about growth. I've been listening a lot to other podcasts of all different formats. It's okay, trying to create my brand and what I want to put out there. And so sometimes I'm like, oh, well, they left that in, and that's something I would cut out, but it sounds fine. It adds to it.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think that the whole formula creation is really important. It's for me, I just go on. Did you listen to my podcast? It's basically me just ranting for 10 minutes. I have a structure, but it's just me talking. Well, it's like talking to you. I just go off on tangents and then, okay, I'm going to stop talking now. When I always tell, in terms of content creation, I always tell people, come up with that kind of, types, and then you just do each one, and then see which ones you like and which ones resonate, and then just do more of that. So it's just about doing stuff is 90% of getting started.
I'm learning that. I can resonate with you in the fact that a while ago you mentioned that you will take a year to kind of think something over, or you'll take that time to think about before you do it. And that was my biggest issue, was I would think about things forever that I would never do them. And then one day it was if you're waiting till you're ready, you're always going to be waiting, that quote. And I was like, just do it. You're gonna have to fail anyway, so just might as well fail trying.
It's never going to be perfect.
Yeah.
And you're going to. Well, I always tell people YouTube channels, because everybody's like, well, my videos are going to look like crap. It's go to your favorite YouTube channel and then sort by date and look at their first 20 videos. And you'll be like, wow, these suck. And you're like, yeah, that's the person you emulate.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's you can look at not look at, but you can listen to my first episode, and it's literally just my short little, hi, this is me. This is my guest. And versus now where it's I have a little song that intros in before I start talking, and it fades in the background, it cuts into the interview, fades out, I do a little recap, and then I give a bit on who the next guest is going to be, and then it fades back out to the same intro song. It's just the whole process.
Oh yeah, it's all
you have to learn as you go.
It evolves. That's the point. That's how you get good. It has nothing to do with how could you possibly do well when you first do it.
Yeah.
You're some kind of savant or something. That's no.
Yeah, but along a similar line, I was going with, for your business, what do you think has been your biggest success so far, at least in your career?
I would say that, even when I was in high school, my whole goal was to sell a business. I was if I could grow and sell a business, that'll be proof that I could create a system that people like, a product that people like, whatever it is. That's validation that worked. And then, of course, I'm going to be a zillionaire and not have to work ever again. That was my goal. I was I'm going to work until I'm 30, and then I'm going to retire and not work anymore. And so I did. I grew the business and then sold my company in 2014. It was called My Med Methods. It was a fitness magazine and online equipment sales. And then I sold it to a company called On It here in Austin. And then I worked as their CFO, Chief Fitness Officer. I was really, the content side of the business. So I basically turned my magazine and all the content. We probably had like 1,000 videos. We had 2,000 pages of website content. I had a whole network of writers. I had everything. And so I turned that into their education base called On It Academy, and then ran that for a year. And then I left and I wrote a book. So that was probably the biggest success, just growing and selling an entirely new concept out of scratch. I did it organically. I never actually advertised. So that was kind of my claim to fame. What you realize, though, if you do that, is you're just going to start another business, and you're going to go through the whole thing over again, and then you're starting from scratch this time. Again, so it's like, I don't know. If I could go back, I don't know if I would sell the business, just because it's after you do that. I mean, it was validation again, but now I'm just doing the stupid thing over again. Like, I should have just kept the business and kept growing, and then hire people so you don't have to do all the work yourself.
But do you think that because you did sell that business and now you have kind of been put in a place where you are in a need to create again, do you think that's given you even more confidence in the work that you already do and has allowed you to have that broader base of doing all the client consulting that you do?
Yeah, it's tricky because I think it's you have to narrow down at some point. Like, if you look at my current website, megabywebsites.com, I have my portfolio on there, and it covers like 24 industries. And that's what I've done over the last 6 years, is all these different things. And the problem is that if you are just so broad, you do everything for everyone, there's just no way to create an operational system that will allow you to really narrow down and specialize in something that you could then scale. So if you're always going custom and you're always so broad and open, you will never be able to make your income passive or make your leads passive. So it's a catch. I mean, really, I do the same thing with my clients. I say, hey, in terms of content, you are throwing mud at a wall. You do a ton of different stuff, and then you see what sticks, and then you just do more of that stuff. But if you just keep on throwing mud at a wall, it's just a mud-covered wall, and you're stuck. So you got to do that review, and you do have to consciously think like, hey, I'm not just going to take all the business that comes in. I'm going to start narrowing down into something that I'm really good at, and then systematize and stop doing all the work yourself. That's the end goal. That's a business, is an operation that you don't have to be 100% present all the time in order for it to work.
The main first business that you talked about in terms of growing and selling was fitness-based, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any specific reason why you picked fitness?
No, not really. What happened was I worked for a startup called Teleparent after college, and I was basically doing business planning and strategy. My major is in HR, so it's all about projections and dealing with operations. So I worked for that business, helped them raise, I think, $2 million in debt and equity capital. And then I left, and I decided that I was going to get into e-commerce because I didn't want to see anybody. That was my plan. I was like, if I'm online, I don't have to see or talk to anybody ever. And so that didn't work at all. If you do want to do that, though, you get into coding. You do not get into design and branding, because I have to talk to everyone all the time. Okay, so I got into online because I was trying to avoid people. That's why I got into online. In fitness specifically, I needed something to sell. So I was like, and I had a friend at the time that was got into kettlebells. So kettlebells back then, this was like 2006, 2007, somewhere around there, were like brand new. Nobody was really using them here, and it was just like this really weird thing. And so he got certified, and I was like, hey, you be the front man. I'm going to be in the background. I'm going to sell equipment online. We'll import, and then I'll shoot the videos. I'll make the graphics. You just have to be the guy, and I'll do everything else. And so that actually worked for a couple of years. We grew the business, put up the website. I think we're doing like 10, 15,000 a month in equipment sales online. And that was a really ugly website, and it was working out. And then we decided to make a magazine based on. I was trying to find a way to utilize the fitness network, because all the fitness people love to talk, and I'm like, hey, these guys know so much more than me, because I'm not really a fitness person. I do the bare minimum to be fit. Like, that's my claim to fame. I barely work out. It's not something like people in the fitness industry. They love fitness. They love exercise. They love the techniques and the body movements and all this kind of stuff, and which is fantastic, because I don't. And I want to do almost nothing. That's my goal. And so I found if I could use these people who have all this information, all these certifications, all this experience, and I could just help them get their information online, everybody wins. I get the information, they get exposure, and so that's where the magazine actually came from. And then converting all that content from the magazine to the website actually turned into the business. So yeah, that's the story. And yeah, get into coding if you want to not talk to very many people. Not design. Design is different.
Yeah, design requires a lot of here, and then they go, can you change this? And then you go back and change it, and then here. Do you like this?
Yeah. And it's basically customer service. It's extreme customer service, client management.
Except they think they own you because they're paying you to do the design.
Well, yeah, that's the tricky part, because it's just like, I have done this 1,000 times. You should listen to what I say. And they're like, no, I have an opinion based on flowers or something. Like, okay. This is better than my 10,000 hours spent on website design. But people want what they want. That's their prerogative, and they're paying, so whatever.
So, one, I think it's not entirely fair that you say you don't work out, because for as long as I've known you, you definitely just look like somebody that's always in shape.
Yeah, that's my wife says I'm a genetic freak, and it's probably true. But I got in shape because I used to be a water polo player, so I always worked out 6 hours a day or whatever. And when you work out that much as an athlete, you don't have to know anything. You're just burning calories all the time. So after I stopped playing water polo, after college, I got out of shape, and I just saw my picture. It was the same, saw a picture of me at the beach, and I'm like, wow, I look like crap. And then decided to get in shape. And with the kettlebell, I was actually able to get back in shape in like 2 months in the space of my condo with one kettlebell. And then I was like, 15 minutes a day. That's all I did. And so I was like, this is great. This is an awesome method of training. And I barely have to work out. But, people are always like, workout sucks. I don't want to do it. I wouldn't do it if I didn't have to do it. Like, I compare it to brushing your teeth. You got to brush your teeth. There's nothing fun about it, but you got to do it, and so you do it, and that's it.
Yeah, and the results are good because you get to keep your teeth.
Exactly. Well, and you got to keep your body. Nobody wants. Well, the other side of that, just from the as a man, you always see these guys, and even athletic guys, when they hit 40, their backs go out, their hips go out, their knees go out, like everything goes out. So I'm just like, I'm not going to be like that, because those guys look like they're in pain all the time. And so the training I want to do is the more functional training that was more joint healthy. And so that's where the kettlebell stuff came from, because I'm like, I'm not going to go run marathons or climb a mountain. I'm going to do barely anything. and it's possible. You could do that.
When you saw that old picture of yourself, decided to utilize the mechanisms that you had, being a kettlebell or what have you, and then, you did see a difference in whether it was maybe feeling stronger or seeing yourself slim down more, do you think that affected your confidence in any way?
Yeah, I mean, you always feel better when you feel, for me, it's feeling strong. When I feel strong, then that's a real positive thing. I don't get I don't know. I think a lot of people have like this perception of like, I'm going to feel like Superman or something if I get into really good shape, and people are going to love me. Like, you always hear those stories, and I just think it's sad when they're like, I was a fat kid, and then I got into shape and people started liking me, and blah, blah. I'm like, aw. It's so sad. Like, I'm not. yeah, I think fitness is necessary, but that's a bad self-esteem issue, and yeah, I can't identify with it because I don't care that much what people think. I do care what people think, but in terms of that, like, you're going to perceive me based on my looks, that's a bad trait on your part, you know?
No, I agree, and I think that it's part of the reason why I care about the work that I do in terms of putting something like this out there, because I can attest to that. Like, I grew up as an athlete, so working out wasn't like a thing to me. It was just like, you go to practice, you play games, and then inadvertently, yeah, you're burning a ton of calories, and also you're like a teenager and you're in your early 20s, so
it's easy.
Yeah, it's easy. And so it's not that big of a deal. And so once I stopped being athletic, that was when I saw the change, and I was like, no, not my favorite. We have to find something to help, which I have, and I'm grateful for, and I know what I like to do, and, you know, for me, I'm crazy. I like jogging.
That's awesome. I mean, people get, like, you know, the runner's high from that. Like, that's something I would envy if I was super lazy about it.
But yeah, like you're saying, with people that maybe have battled with their weight their whole life, and they don't ever feel that sense of self-esteem or self-confidence, that's really why I wanted to put something like this out there. I want people to see that, yes, obviously, number one, you want to be healthy. That's always the main goal. But, I mean, health looks different on everybody. We're not all going to be Calvin Klein and Victoria's Secret models. But there's tons of other ways that you can draw confidence. And sometimes I think confidence comes from stability. And whether that's found in you, in your work, in your family. Would you say that there's been any sort of foundational stability that you come back to in terms of, like, centering yourself when either work is crazy or whatever is going on, that you're kind of just like, meh?
Oh, that's a good question, because I do, you know, and it's funny because I always make fun of fitness, but I realize the changes when I do exercise a lot, and I'm like, I feel good, you know, I sleep better. Actually, I never sleep better. I feel stronger, whatever it is. But yeah, I'm trying to think of, what do I do to recenter when I feel stressed? That's, you know, with us, you know, me and my wife, we have, my son is autistic, you know, Damien. And so we've dealt with this constant stress for 7 years now. And so it's almost like you just get into this haze of survival. And so I'm still trying to answer how I recenter. And I don't know. I don't know how I recenter. I work harder.
No, okay, and I get that, because I think for me, some days just throwing myself into a ton of work makes me feel re-centered. And it sounds weird because people are like, well, you should unplug from work to kind of find that focus. And it's like, well, everybody's different. And I think feeling like that sense of control over my productivity is something that helps.
That helps.
Yeah, for me at least.
No, that makes sense. Well, for me, yeah, I don't know. I deal with this constant need to produce things, right? And so I should be outsourcing more stuff than I do, but I have like this. Well, one, I'm capable of doing it. I've spent my whole life training myself how to do all these things that I've always wanted to do, and now I could do all of them, and now I don't have any time to do any of them. And it's like, so that's where the systems management comes in. That's what it is. That's what I do to unwind, is I make procedures, repeatable procedures that somehow relieve some type of stress. And so, yeah, organization. That's how I do it.
Okay. Yeah. No, I like that. That's a good one. Not that I would like any or dislike what your answer is, but
it's not relatable. But it's what I realized that as a kid. Like, I always, like, if things can be organized, I feel good. Like, if I clean the garage and it looks just fantastic and I can walk through it without stepping on stuff, I'm like, I feel better. And next time I see it, I'll also feel better. And yeah, so that's what I do. I clean and organize.
No, I think that's way more relatable than you realize. A lot of people, a good handful of people that I've interviewed so far, say that taking that time to clear the space, like literally, it helps also feel like they're kind of clearing their mind. And my brother always tells me, like, your life reflects your room and your car. So if your room and your car are a mess, so is your life.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm at like I can't even say I go home and it's Friday night and it's like okay, you can just unwind. Like I cannot relax until the house is picked up. So I do the dishes and then I do the laundry and I take out the trash and I pick up all the dog's stuff all over the house, and the kids' stuff all over the house, and then it's like an hour later I'm like, and now I can relax.
I feel like I even get a better night's sleep when the room is clean. Like when I'm not worried about the fact that like, oh, if I get up in the middle of the night, I'm gonna trip over my backpack or something because I actually hung it up.
Well, it's like for me, it's almost like a presence. Like I can sense the pile of junk in the corner, and I'm like, I can't sleep. That's why the room's always pitch black. I have to sleep in pitch black.
So you can avoid sensing the clutter.
Sensing the clutter. Can't sense anything. That's fantastic.
But in terms of your home life, we've talked a lot about your career, and that started when you were a young single guy, not married, no kids. Transforming your life while still pursuing your business, have you felt like you've been able to then gain confidence in that part of your life as you've navigated it? I know you talked about some of the struggles with raising Damien, and just obviously there's always new chapters when you get married, have kids, and all that. So what's that kind of been like for you?
The kind of transition into fatherhood.
Yeah, just a little bit all of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's throws everything up in the air because it's just like all these things that you thought were complicated as a single young person, you realize were just like, wow, that was a big pile of nothing. That was the easiest time in my life, and it's only going to get more complicated from here. So that's you try to tell this to younger people. You're just like, no, cooking your own dinner and going to the gym isn't work. Like that's the best part of your day, because the rest of the time you're gonna be working is what it is.
Right.
Parenting's hard. Keeping up with quadrupling your expenses is hard. Time management, relationship management, all that stuff. It just gets so much more complicated. Then you're raising people,
Yeah.
and so then you're like, am I screwing this up? It's infinitely more stressful, and I think the organization helps. Like you marry somebody who makes sense. Jamie, my wife, she's like a polar opposite in terms of being organized for me, but she's also like a doer. So she's the person who's not going to think about it. She's just going to get done. And so that's awesome, because then it combats my tendency to organize and wait. And so, yeah, she's that side. So if you could find somebody like that, find a partner, then you'll be in much better shape, because then you won't have to take it all on yourself. And so I think that's what happens a lot of times with marriages that you see where you're like, why didn't that work? And you're like, oh, because they're not really partners. They're just, I don't know, people who really were passionate for each other for a little bit.
Yeah.
And yeah, so find a partner you like, and then just be prepared for constant chaos for like 18 years.
Just speaking of Jamie, like I've always just loved your wife. I've always thought Jamie was super amazing, like inspiring to me. And I think literally when I first met you guys, and I was working for you at not only at the business but babysitting, like I would always just talk about Jamie to like my family. And at that time the guy I was dating, and I'd just be like, she's amazing, like for lack of a better term, she's a badass. Like I just love Jamie so much. So I'm glad she got brought up during this.
She's a warrior. I actually thought that even in this current situation with the whole health crisis, like I've always pictured like, oh man, if everything goes to hell, like you'll want Jamie in your corner. And that's totally true, and it occurred. So I think one of my benefits is just long-term good decision making that feels terrible at the time. Not that Jamie was terrible, but where you're deciding something that's painful right now, and then it just like turns out good because you thought about it and you knew it was going to be right. And so that's happening.
Speaking of like, I guess, fortitude in terms of like your journey in life and all that, would you say that you've had somebody that's been like a big inspiration to you, or somebody that's been like your biggest supporter?
I think my family's awesome. They super love me, and I always appreciate that. And so they've always been on my side, whether they really showed it or not. I think now you look back and you're like, oh wow, I was really being supported that entire time. So that's my family in general. That's been awesome. And then in terms of inspiring people, I've always had these entrepreneur men that I've looked up to, and that's always been an inspiration. Not really a guide, but just learning things from people all over the place. Because I go on all these podcasts and they're like, oh, who's your favorite, mentor or whatever? I'm like, I don't have one. That just doesn't, never really resonate with that. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's, just these really successful people that have been in my life forever, and just watching them and how they've managed their things. And there are some traits with, I'm a man, so I look at the successful men, and I'm just like, these traits of energy that I've seen where I'm just like, man, these guys don't stop ever. They walk fast. They can't sit down for 10 seconds. They're always moving. They're always going. And so you see, and I've seen this repeated with, the most successful people I know, where they just are just on fire all the time. And from like how I want to be, I'm like, oh, that sucks. That's exhausting. I don't want to be moving all the time. I want to just hang out sometimes and do literally nothing. I want to think about nothing. I want to just be a rock and just sit there. And that is not how the successful guys I've seen are. They are on freaking fire. And it makes it exhausting to look at them.
Do you think that is solely an inherent trait, or do you think they were able to learn and grasp that kind of energy and turn it into something?
I think for the guys that are super duper successful, it is like genetically in there. It's like ADHD, except it's like a productive ADHD, because they are just obsessive. They work nonstop. They have infinite energy. They have infinite ideas. They just are, if you look at, have you seen that Bill Gates, what was that, Bill and Melinda Gates documentary they put on Netflix? But he's like that, where it's just like the guy never stopped. And so I started thinking about, I'm like, oh my gosh, maybe these super successful people, the only thing that makes them very different is that they do 5 times as much work as everybody else. Mm-hmm. Doesn't have actually to do with luck or talent or anything other than they just do a lot more of it. And so I think that's, I should probably do an article about it, because I have like these case studies where I'm just like, this is exactly how they are. They don't even sleep. Like, they sleep like 3 hours a night. You're like, that's not, you can't learn that. Have you tried to not sleep?
I haven't. And nobody wants to deal with that.
Well, my son, Damien, he was for 3 years. He was up between 1 and 5 daily, and would get up and he would run around the house. And I'm a light sleeper, so I was just like, I'm up. And so I spent 3 years sort of not sleeping, and I was not productive. It was not beneficial in any way. And I was just exhausted all the time, and there was no recovery from it until he finally started sleeping. Now we sleep, except for last night. Man, Turkey was up till midnight screaming. Yes, so I don't know if that answers your question about admiring people. I do admire people. It's just I just admire specific traits. I think people have a tendency to take these idols and just be like, that's the top, everything they do is gold. And it's just like, nah, I know rich people, and they're sort of miserable and unhappy too. They just have a different set of crappy problems. It's not that much different. Like, that's not the goal. I have $1 zillion. It's like, who cares? It's not going to fix anything,
I agree, because I think that a lot of people do tend to kind of blanket a role model or somebody that they really want to emulate their life, kind of like someone else that they see. Maybe they're in the limelight with fame or with riches or what have you. But I think more importantly, it's those traits that people have.
Yeah, I think if you can just say, just acknowledge that the traits are what you actually want. You don't want to be that person. That person has a group of crap you don't want to touch.
What do you think is like the most admirable trait of maybe somebody that you look at that is either competent or successful that you admire?
I would say, Elon Musk. That's kind of obvious and cliche, but I mean, his ability to like just take on whatever, like he doesn't even have to be competent in it, and his ability to fail and keep on going. Like he's trying to build the new rocket ship,
right,
and he's blown up 3 of them, And when he was trying to land the rockets on the boat, like he blew up, I don't know, 13 of them. He failed a lot, and not just like little failures. Like these would have derailed entire success, like significant businesses. They would have just been gone. So that means he's able to fail, convince all the investors that it's okay, and then fail again. And that's admirable, because if you've done anything significant or you're trying to do something significant, that they always say like, oh, fail, pick yourself up from failure. It's not easy, and it's super painful, and the likelihood that you're just going to say, F it, this is too hard, I'm going to go do something easy, is very tempting. And so, yeah, I think Elon Musk, for his ability to, 1, take on industries that he doesn't know or understand, and then 2, just say F it and go, and then 3, convince everybody that it's okay that he fails all the time. Yeah, those are good traits.
I think convincing everybody it's okay that you fail all the time is definitely the one I envy the most. I want to be able to do that, walk into a room of like billionaire investors and just be like, yeah, messed up again, but it's okay. Back to the drawing board. Don't worry.
Literally, it exploded. It's not even like, oh, I launched a product and it didn't quite work. No, the thing exploded. It detonated and it failed. But it's okay, because next time it's going to blow up less or something.
Your money literally went up in flames, but it's fine.
Yeah,
it's fine.
But it's okay. We learned something. Moving on. Yeah, no, it's a neat trait.
Well, I think that could even be constituted as like an innate confidence within him, because he's just able to each time go like, all right, that was wrong, next. Like you're saying, without feeling so derailed that he throws the towel and is just like, this isn't for me. It's like, no, this is for me, but just this wasn't the right way this time.
Yeah. Well, it's I don't know. It's once you want to get to the point where you can fail without it being super catastrophic. So for him, he's worth billions of dollars. Oh yeah, whatever. It didn't work. Moving on. Worst case scenario, I buy an island and hang out for the rest of my life. That's the difference between the super rich and you. Because if you catastrophically fail, you're going bankrupt. You could get, you could lose your wife or your family. You could lose everything you've ever built. Like that's a much bigger consequence. So if you get to the point where it's 1, not your money that you're risking, and then 2, it doesn't matter so much that you're gonna die. And I say that sort of facetiously, but I mean, suicide's a real thing. And I've heard of people, like there's some guy in Texas, like last year I read about, and he was, $15,000 in debt, and he was taking care of 2 kids, and he couldn't handle it, and he killed himself. And the only thing I thought was, $15,000? That's your problem? Like, that's not a big problem, and not worth killing yourself over. Like, and I'm not advocating bad things, but go rob a bank if you're about to kill yourself. Like, literally do anything other than kill yourself. Like, it's crazy to me. And people just put the like, oh, I'm a failure because of this. And it's just like, no, you're not. It's just a dumb thing that happened. You're not even going to think about it in 5 years. So, don't orphan your children. Like, it's hard to look at people who did that and be like, you could have done anything else.
Would you say then, maybe switching gear a little bit, but if somebody is thinking like, I'm just not good at whatever, or I'm just not a confident person, maybe switching the focus, I guess, not putting so much, I guess, weight on failing?
Yeah, I think it's, I don't know if you could not put weight on it, because it's going to feel terrible at the time. And I'm not saying, because I go through dark days too, where I'm just like, man, this is not going right. but you just gotta, I think that's where the work comes in, because if you just dwell on this and you're just looking at the results of whatever you've done instead of just doing more things, then yeah, you will go down the spiral of like, I'm crap and everything is terrible and blah blah blah, and then that'll resonate in everything else you do, and that'll get worse. And I think you just have to. That's why I like procedures, because if the procedure is you do this, 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 and this, and it has nothing to do with results, it just has to do with you doing the things, then you don't have time or energy to think about when something went wrong or when something failed. You're too busy working, and then time passes and things will work out. You just keep on working. It's like it's all of life. You just keep working, and then you make it or not. It doesn't matter. You want to make it,
Yeah, of course. Like you're talking about right now was, instead of letting your obstacle overcome you, finding ways to overcome obstacles. Like you kind of mentioned, don't really give up. Don't find a way out, find a way through, I suppose, right?
Yeah, it's almost like not a way through, though. It's just like, just keep going, literally anywhere, and you'll be better than just focusing on terrible things that you can't change.
Do you feel like you've had any big obstacles that you have overcome? And if so, what would that be?
I think overcoming, I was, over the last 10 years, I think, there's been quite a few. I was actually married originally. I got married when I was, I think it was 24 or so.
And this is before Jamie?
Yeah, this is before, yeah. Before my current wife.
I originally got married.
Yes, so I was married before to my high school sweetheart from like junior year in high school, and this was ages 17 to 27, and then we got married around when I was 24, and then at 27 I found out that she had a boyfriend for 7 of the years, and so that was some shocking crap.
Yeah. Sounds like.
Yeah, so that was, and I'm not an idiot. I knew there were things going wrong, but the extent of it was just so much worse than I ever, imagined.
Right.
And so I was in a pretty deep depression for, I'd say, years, And at the same time of that original business partner I told you about, he cheated on his wife that was 7 months pregnant. With one of our clients in the gym that we owned. And so I was dealing with this ex-wife piece of crap, and then I found out my business partner, who was also the best man at my wedding to my ex-wife, was also a piece of crap. And then, yeah, it was like everything terrible happened in the span of like 6 months, and I was just destroyed, So it was just like I've always, I'm structured, so I structured my life, and all these things I'd planned out were happening, and then it just went off the rails, and it was difficult. So yeah, I getting divorced, breaking up a business that was actually going well, and starting over, that was hard. So, but then I met Jamie, and it has worked out. But then, we also have a son with autism, severe autism. So everybody says, autism, my son is nonverbal. He doesn't know how to use the bathroom. He's 7. He's 95 pounds. He's, that's difficult. And we found out probably like 18 months. And so we've been dealing with, having a special needs child that will probably live with us forever and is probably going to be much larger than me. And is also very, the saving grace is he's not medically fragile. He's very healthy. But he's also going to be the size of my dad, who's like 6'5" and 350 pounds. So that's going to be hard. So I need to, one, stay healthy forever. I need to be super successful because, we spend thousands every month in therapy, and then have my life so infinitely structured that when I'm gone, my son will be taken care of, because people like him get abused. And so, so those are my motivations. But yeah, that's been some adversity. So of course, Jamie's fantastic, and we have a nonprofit called Special with the Sight of Mom. So if you guys want to check that out, just talking about the issues dealing with autism. But that's what we do. We identify the problem or the situation, and then you get to work, and that's how you overcome it.
Yeah, and we'll definitely go ahead and we can link the nonprofit and then also all of your own business, website contacts, all that good stuff too, in the description of your episodes. So that way people can get connected, because I think those are definitely important causes, and I know those are close to so many people's hearts too.
Yeah, no, it's it's a great cause. My son's amazing. He's an incredible person. He just is not the easiest person to deal with all the time, and we are just really worried about his well-being, and we will be forever. So yeah, it's any support. That's something you learn as you get older. When people ask you for help when you're young, you're like, no, I got it. And then what I realized when I got older, I was like, hell yeah, what do you got?
Help me.
Any assistance you are willing to give, I appreciate it infinitely, and I will not say no. So just be prepared for that, because I will not say no.
You offer help, I'm taking it.
Yes, there's help available. Oh, fantastic. Great. Here.
Being able to embrace the different struggles and overcoming different hurdles that life kind of puts in front of you, is there any specific maybe moments that you kind of look back on and you think like, I felt really confident in there, or after going through that made me a stronger person?
I'm always different, and I don't think change is bad, so that's a good thing. Yeah, I mean, you end up tougher, all the things that I went through, even, selling the business and then realizing that maybe I shouldn't have done that. It's still beneficial because I have that, thing that I set out to do was accomplished. So yeah, I'd say that. It's interesting. I think being satisfied, that's also a skill in what you do. So I think if you can find the time to do that, because I think when you're going all the time, you just end up saying like, yep, that's another thing that happened, and then you just go more, and then time passes.
Right. The notion behind the title of Exercise Confidence is growth is important in all things, and I think that in order to grow your confidence, you kind of have to put yourself in situations that require you to utilize it and exercise it, much like you would with, your body in a gym. And so if you had a tip for the listeners to be able to exercise confidence daily, what would your tip be?
I think if you do just a little bit of self-examination, say, what is the long-term benefit to myself and others from me working so hard on this? Then they'll put some perspective on what you're doing, and you'll put more effort into it. I think with with my stuff, I'm like, okay, well, I'm giving back to other businesses that are trying to make it. I'm giving them a leg up. They're going to take this information, they're going to grow, and they're going to accomplish things that I can't even predict. Like, it gives me some good perspective over, working harder. Because otherwise it's just like, oh, I'm doing another graphic. Great. Like, that stuff doesn't matter. You're not contributing to anybody. You're doing the work, and you have a product that you're selling, but what's the long-term effect of it? So I think if you just do some introspection of like, hey, this is going to lead to this long-term benefit for other people, then it'll give you the motivation you need to, do it better or do it more. And there you go.
Awesome. No, I love it. All right. Well, Mark, thank you so much for being on the episode today. I appreciate all the rambling and all the insight that you shared.
Ranting is the word for it. Yeah, sorry, I went on some tangents, but hopefully
no, it's no need to apologize.
Out of it.
Yeah, no, 100% for sure. Please tell Jamie and the boys I said hi. I miss them, and I love following you guys on social media because I see how big they are now versus when I used to babysit for you guys. Crazy.
Oh my gosh. Well, when everything's not terrible anymore, we have a guest room, and we always tell people like, come out to Texas. We have all the food, and now we have a pool. The pool just got built, so.
Oh my gosh.
I am so grateful that Mark agreed to be on our podcast. I appreciate how real, authentic, and transparent he was. Those are all qualities that I hold very highly here at Exercise Confidence. I think it's important for us to be transparent with one another if we're going to learn from each other and grow. You hear me say it over and over. There was a point in the interview where Mark brought up the fact that some people are okay with being stagnant. And that's my question for you today, listeners. Are you okay with being stagnant? If not, I think that there are invaluable lessons from today's episode. And if you want to get in contact with Mark, especially if you're somebody that is looking to grow a business or get into the world of entrepreneurship, please contact him. His contact information is linked below. And I know Mark is always willing to give help, just as willing as he is to accept help nowadays. Also, we've linked the nonprofit that he and his wife Jamie have started. And I'm telling you, these people are so inspiring in just the best ways possible. So go ahead and check them out, and I promise you will not be disappointed. As we continue to grow this podcast, I promise that we are going to continue bringing you stories of people who are truly inspiring and helping you with your self-growth and on this journey to exercise confidence. I hope that you are all staying safe and well and healthy. So, signing off for today, I am J.R. Nasari, and I truly do hope that you find a way to exercise confidence every day.